What's up, guys? This is Lewis. Welcome back to another episode of The Development. Today I have a good friend, Katrina Blake. She is a author, podcaster, writer, and a YouTuber, and a big wrestling fan, guys. So, how you been?
I've been okay, considering how COVID's been. I've been hanging in there, taking it a day at a time, and just trying to keep, being creative and stuff. But I've been okay.
Good. Good. I'm glad you're doing okay. The world is changing. So let's get started. I know you're a writer. You've been a writer for quite some time now that I've known you.
Yeah.
You have about 3-4 books out.
Like 8.
Okay, 8 books. 8 books, guys. I'm so off. I'm a bad friend. But 8 books. Congrats. I've known you got awards. I'm not going to say how many because I know I'm probably going to be wrong on that too. But tell us a little more about your books and your 8 books.
Well, I started writing in 2014, where I kind of started taking it seriously mostly. So I started off with like 2 short stories, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just like wrote something. A friend like looked it over and edited, and I just slapped it on Amazon. I had no idea what I was doing. So, by the time I got to like my first novella, I had to like get an editor by that point. So I was like, okay, you know how to tell me what I need to fix, or like tell me like all the red pen is like the editing joke. Like it's full of red, that means your editor's doing its job. So. I did that, and then pretty much after that, I would try to do like 2 to 3 novellas a year. That kind of slowed down. Like last year, I only did I think I did 2 books last year. And then I have nothing this year. I'm hoping to have something by the end of the year, but COVID kind of like just messed up. Like writing plans, my writing juju, like it just wasn't feeling the same. So I took like a bit of a hiatus, but yeah, I write like romance books and young adult books. My next one should be a young adult book, a young adult romance book, because I had like this like super awesome idea, and it actually so far is like I love it. So since this is like the first time I felt, rejuvenated about writing since 2020 has started, that's why I was like excited. Like, yeah, this is probably the book I'm gonna release this year. But yeah, it's been pretty like cool. Just writing and hoping, one day that right person sees it and like, you know what, let's get you into like Barnes and Nobles or something. Because I actually have been I'm in like 2 or 3 indie bookstores, like, local bookstores, which was like really amazing to have that. Like, oh my God, my book's on a bookshelf. But I would love to be like a Barnes and Nobles, or like I go to like a Target and I see like, oh, my book's in the Target book section. Like that would be pretty dope. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, that was good. You answered another question I have. So you're not in Barnes and Nobles, you're not in Target.
Yeah.
Barnes and Nobles. Get my girl in. Get my girl in. She wants to be in. Target, you too. So I know we can find your books mostly on Amazon.
Yes.
Paperback and audio also, or?
I have ebook and paperback. I would love to do audiobooks, but I would probably have to like hire an actor, because normally I write in 2 POVs, so I'll write like the woman's POV and then I write the guy's POV. So I would have to have like both to make it sound the way I need it to sound. But I would love to have that like one day, just to have like an audiobook. Like, oh my God, this is so like, you hear my words like out loud would be awesome. But yeah, it is on, everything's on Amazon under K Blake, since that's my pen name. They're all there in paperback and an ebook. I just try to make it easy so everything's like on the same page.
Awesome. Super congratulations.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy being a writer, being creative. Just imagine like what's your next book or your next story, but congrats to you.
Thank you.
How many awards do you have?
So I have 1 award, which was really cool, because I found out like somebody just randomly was like, oh, I think this is you, and I was like nominated for like this Summer Indie Book Award, like I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. So I looked and I was like, oh, this is my book, and it was just like oh my god, like somebody wanted to not, and it. I mean, the story. A lot of people did say the story kind of made them cry, and it was supposed to. It was supposed to be a story that kind of tugged at the heartstrings, but I really didn't think anything of it. Like as far as anybody liked it enough to want to nominate it for something, and then I did have like 2 or 3 other nominations for other books, but it was always just like really like you liked my book, like my last nomination last year. I was in a category with people I fangirl over. So I'm in the same category with people that I love, like people I like would like have a meltdown about meeting. And one of the authors I did meet like last year at BookCon, so I was just like, oh my god, we're in the same category. Like this is crazy. Like what? I never expected like that. So that was like pretty awesome. It was like really humbling. Like oh my god, you guys actually like my stuff. I always like very critical about my stuff when I know it's like I got it well and it's polished, but then I was like, oh, but I could have probably did this different, and then I'll like overanalyze stuff even if it's published. So it's always really like mind blowing when somebody goes, oh, I really like this book, or like it nominated. And I'm like, but why? What really? So it's always like that's pretty like awesome. So
That's awesome. That so it only takes one book or maybe two for somebody to be like, I love her writing. I want her to get an award. That's really awesome. Congrats on that.
thank you.
Who inspired you to like just be a writer and like wanting to like publish not publish, or write your own book and just grow from there?
So the thing is, I always tell people like that wasn't like initially what I wanted to do. Like when I was a kid, I was like I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to lock people up. I wanted to be like that crazy prosecutor who just like locked all the bad guys up, or like I wanted to like sing at one point. And I was like, I don't like people enough to like want to sing in front of people, and that means I gotta perform. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, can they like not see me perform? Like, could it be like some case like they could hear my voice but they don't need to see me? So once I realized I can't like I need people to be able to have a singing career, and that means I would have to like perform. And I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work. I was like, okay, let me try this writing thing. Like I used to write all the time. I used to write poems and like song lyrics, and I used to write fan fiction. Like I tell people, technically the person who really got me into writing for other people was Jeff Hardy. So I used to write fan fiction about Jeff Hardy at like 13, 14 years old. And I used to put it on this online site, and people would comment like, oh, this is really good. I think a couple of times I even collabed with other teenage writers, and we would just like take a chapter and we go back and forth. And at the time I'm like, oh, it's just like, this is like just a fandom thing. Like, oh, we are fans and we like Jeff Hardy, let's just write something. But that was literally the first time I wrote for public, for like somebody that wasn't my mom or somebody that wasn't me. So I always like credit that if I can ever meet, because I met Jeff Hardy before, but to meet him, to have a conversation, to tell him you're actually the reason I became like, where I was like, you're the first person or I wrote about that was like for public to see. So once like 2014 hit and I was like, let me see if I can do this, it kind of went from there. And then I was just like, I do have like all these, like I can get an idea from like Taylor Swift, like inspired like mad stories of mine. So not that I'm like a big Taylor Swift fan, because I'm not, but like there's like about 2 or 3 songs of hers that I've used in a song and like a book before, just because it's like, oh, I could play around with this idea a little bit. And or it'll be like a certain situation I see, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me just write it down. Like I'll use it for something. So normally that's how it works for me. But I think that's just like, I do like telling stories, and I like to like get those words down and like see characters that look like me, but like characters that like very diverse and like actual New York City, because most of my stories take place in New York City, because I'm like, New York City is the best city in the world. So I'm like, I hate when I see stories in New York City and then I'm like, this is not like, what part of New York is this? Like, are you sure you're from New York? Like, do you know like how the MTA works and like Metro? And it was just always weird to me that I'm like, it doesn't feel New York enough. So I'm like, I'm a firm believer, if you're gonna write about New York City, make it realistic, even if it's fiction. So I always let people know that this is a New York City type of a story, the New York City backdrop. It happens in New York City. And then like I'm like a big sap, so I like happy, like, love and happy endings. So that's like my main reason for it. So.
New York, we keep it big out here. Sorry, other states, don't want to offend you guys, but New York, we keep it big out here. And, thanks to Jeff Hardy and Taylor Swift for inspiring my friend. You guys watching, hit her up, tell her you're welcome, something, I don't know. Never know. Never know what can inspire you to want to write something, or or just want to be something, because you might think, one, like you said, you wanted to be a singer, but you was just like, wait, I don't want to be in front of people. So you know can't you gotta once you know a road and you took off, that's the best part. Do you have any books today that you have?
Yeah, so I brought two of them. So, this one is the one I got the award for. So, I always like this always has a special place because one, I love this cover, and I did this cover myself. So, I always tell people it's like I'm not a cover designer, but this picture, and I was like, let me play around with it a bit, and it came out really nice. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can play around. So when I got the award, I had to like kind of update the cover and add the award-winning part and add the label they gave me. But it's always just like, like it holds a special place because this is the award that got people to like really start reading my stuff, and I always was just like, a special place. And then this one is my like first YA book, which the girl who did the cover is like amazing, and I was just like, oh my god, do something, like here's some pictures, do something, whatever, make it up. And I always let people, when I hire people to do stuff creatively, I give an idea, but I don't like stifling what they do. I feel like if that's what you do, you're kind of free, do whatever you feel is right. I'm not really picky about that because I always feel like you're a creative person, you should be able to do that freely. So I don't like being a person like, oh my god, no, change it. Like, no, I'll give you like a little bit of idea and then just free reign it, do whatever you feel like you need to do. And most times it always comes out great. So I don't have to be like, well, I don't know if I like this. So this is like my YA book, and this one actually did very well because this one I wrote a few years ago, but then I kind of like put it to the side and I was like, I don't know if I want to do it. And then it was like a ode to like your teenage years and like summer in New York City. So it's like, okay, I can kind of pull it out now. So I released it last year, but it was pretty nice. It was pretty like dope to just like do something a little bit different than my normal. I normally write adult stuff, so it was nice to write a young adult. Like, oh, okay, this is like an ode to my teenage years with like 90s playlists and all the awesome 90s songs I grew up to listening to that kids don't know about these days. So so those are like two of like really ones that's like special places for me.
What's the name of your award one so that people can check it out?
So this one is called Catch Me If I Fall. It's actually book one in a series of three Korean American brothers who like fall for these girls. And so this one, it's like the best way to describe it is they meet at like a grief counseling. They both like had lost in their lives, and it's like their second chance at like finding happiness, which I thought was like a nice touch. And there's like stuff I don't want to give away, but it might make you a little sad at first because it made me sad writing it. It made my editor very sad. She was like, why would you? And I'm like, listen, this is how the story is working for me. But it's book one in a series. Book two is out. Book three, God, I hope it comes out in 2021 because 2020 kind of ruined me writing book three. I just didn't like it where it was going, and I had to just stop writing it. But hopefully book three will be out in 2021. But it is book one in a series. It's not a book that you have to read to the end and then wait for the next one. It does finish at the end, and then book two will be the other brother. So. Well,
let's hope for the best. Book 3, 2021. Let's get it together. She needs to get her book out. Anybody you would want to collab or like work with, or maybe even write something for?
Oh man, there's a few people I would love to work with. So even though I write romance, Stephen King is like my favorite author of all time. I would tell people like if I can just have a conversation like 10 minutes with him and just talk to him about how well he's like, especially his older books like The Shining and Carrie and I'm like, I always can read his stuff and feel like I'm really part of what he wrote and how well he was able to immerse me in the world he created. And so if I can like work with him, I will totally do whatever he asks me to do just to work with him. And just because horror is my first love. I love horror movies. I will like watch all types of horror stuff. I love horror books, even though I do write romance. But I've been trying to take classes on trying to change, because there's a certain way to write horror that you do not do in romance. You have to writing third person. I hate writing in third person. If you're writing third person, you have to set the scene. So it's like, you're telling the story, and it's supposed to be able to get the reader into it to a point where they can feel fearful or whatever. So I would love to work with him if I could. If it's like writing a screenplay, even if it's like just to have a conversation, him to give me tips or anything, I would love to do that. I would like to work with YA author Nicola Yoon and Daniel Clayton. I love the way they write. And they also tell very vibrant, young adult stories with teenagers that, like, if I was a teenager, I would have wanted this book. And then as far as romance, probably Alyssa Cole, who's a really, like, known author. She has quite a few awards. And I'm actually friends with her now. Which happened over something at an event, and I just happened to meet her, and I was like, oh my god. And then, we started like talking on Instagram, so like now I consider her like a friend. But I would love to work with her too, just to like kind of collab on something. But she writes mostly historicals, and I like writing like contemporary, like now stuff. But I would totally do a historical if I could just work with her for a little bit just to do that. But those are like the authors that I really want to. I am collabing with 2 people currently, and COVID did switch up some plans for both of us, but we're trying to where we're going back and forth, where it's something that hopefully can be released in 2021, hopefully. But those are like my dream collabs, to work with those people.
That's awesome. If any of you are watching, hit my girl up. She wants to work with you guys. You never know. That's super awesome. Congrats on like everything that you have going on right now. So, I know you're a podcaster and a YouTuber. Tell us a little more about that.
So my podcast is I do technically 2 podcasts. So my normal podcast, which I do with my co-host B.L. McGreal, who's a YA author as well. It's called the Bookish Brown Girls podcast. So like originally what I did was I wanted to have like a platform where I can kind of promote books written by women of color, especially when you were going to like a bookstore, and it was always really hard to find books where like women of color, or they put like, if it was like a black authors, they would put us all in one genre, even if we wrote something different. So they would consider it like if people who write street lit, which is like, books that kind of have like street life. And I've read those books, and I have nothing against those books. I don't write that. So it's always like a bit offensive when like you put every black author in like one section, you put every Spanish author in one section. It's like when you see white authors, they get their genres. They get to go under YA, they get to go under fantasy, they get to go under horror. And I was like, that's crazy to me. Like, why can't we have everybody be where they belong? So the original goal was just to have a platform where I can have all the women of color I knew, and if I didn't know, you let me know. I would add them to a database where they can just be under their genres they're on, and then I would link to their books, I'll link to their websites. And then the podcast, and I was like, I think we should do a podcast. And I asked her, she lives in Ohio, so I'm like, we don't live close, so can we pull this off where we're not in the same state and do the podcast? And then it worked the first episode. And the first episode, we were so anal about it. Like, we had to have notes. So we was like, oh, we got to make sure this is perfect. Now we're like, the day before, we'll be like, so we're going to talk about what tomorrow? And then and then it just, or like sometimes even the day off, like the morning of, I'm like, so the podcast, we're doing it at 6, right? And like, yeah. And like, okay, what's the topic? Let me give me like 5 minutes, and I'll come up with something, and then I'll send it to her. And now we just kind of wing it because we're like used to it now. But this is also season 3, so it's like I guess it's so much different when season 1 we was like so like, oh my god, I gotta be perfect. We gotta have all our notes together. We used to have like notepads full of notes. Now it's like, listen, we'll have like a whole conversation. Sometimes we like deviate, but it always goes back to the topic. And it's like just having a conversation with like somebody who I'm like very close to. So that was like the initial goal, just to like have, make sure everybody know that there are women of color who do write books, and, let them be seen. But then we also talk about sometimes how it is writing in the publishing world when you're like a black woman, because, there's a different set of struggles for us sometimes than it is, or not just for us, but like any women of color author will tell you sometimes there's certain hurdles we will have to jump over to get to like the big 5 publishing houses, or to see our books, or get certain contracts. If you get to like a really big book deal, you might not get the contract some other author who might not have even been as good as you, that type of thing. So that was the initial goal. And then my other podcast is just me interviewing like wrestlers. Like normally I'm a big wrestling fan, so, and I love like New Japan and WWE, but indie wrestling kind of introduced me to some really awesome people that like you'd be like, how are you not signed to like a big company? Like you're great. How did nobody scoop you up yet? And so like my goal is just like, oh, if I can talk to them, it's just like, well, what's your goal, or like what it is that you do, what's your gimmick? And it's just like that. It's just like my love for wrestling is kind of why I do the podcast with the wrestling stuff. And the YouTube is just so like, there's so much crap on my YouTube. Like, there's no real, I can't even say it's anything specific because I've talked about so many different things. Like, I mentioned wrestling, but then I also, like, my last video was about the X-Men movies, and I just ranked them. And I was like, listen, I'm going to give you my ranking of the X-Men movies. And people was laughing. I was like, listen, like, I'm going to probably be, like, really annoyed by some of this because they ruined a couple of things. But, you know, I'm going to list my ranking of how I listed all the movie reading. Like, you know, I didn't include none of it because those movies. But like I did that, and like my next one is gonna be about the Spider-Man movies because I was just like, I'm a big Marvel person. I love Marvel comics. I like DC, but Marvel is where it's at for me. So I'm like, listen, X-Men, Wolverine is very close to my heart, so I had to rank them in. And Spider-Man is like, who doesn't like the debate of who's the better Spider-Man? Like, is it Tom? Is it Tobey? Is it Andrew? Like, so that's my next one that's coming out. But I talk about so much different things on there. It's like, I can't even tell you. If somebody asked me to YouTube, I'm just like, there's things on there. I don't know there's nothing specific. I talk about so many different things. Like, I talked about Naruto. My very first YouTube video was about how much I loved Naruto. And it's like, I finished Naruto, and I cried, and I was very emotional about this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a video about how emotional Naruto made me. And, like, how I was sad about certain people's deaths. And I'm like, why would you break my heart like that? Like, it was just, like, stuff like that, which, like, made absolutely, like, no direction. But I was like, which I don't understand. Like, I was really heartbroken about some of this stuff in the show. So, it's really, like, anything kind of goes on that channel. I don't have anything specific. It's too many different things that I do on that channel. I'm just like, you know what? Whatever topic I feel like, I'm just doing a video up there. And be like, here you go. Somebody will find something. I feel like it's something that a channel... anybody can probably find a video that they will like because I talk about so many different things on there. So
definitely. I just gotta say I do agree with you on the X-Men movies, but we're not gonna go there. That's on another time. And for the Spider-Mans, I'll let you know right now. I'm gonna say Maguire, Holland, and then Andrew. Sorry for the Andrew fans out there.
Oh, Andrew's my last one too.
So sorry, Andrew.
I don't like Andrew.
Yeah.
Not personal. I just don't like him as, you know, Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Just like, no, we didn't need that.
Yep. I agree with you. I thought the first movie was great. The second movie, but we're not gonna go there. It's about you right now. It's not about Andrew Garfield. Oh man, that's great. Season 3, that's crazy. I hope to be in your status one day. That I'm only on season 1 of the development, but I hope to be there one day. Congrats to like everything you do. It's just in New York especially, it's super hard out there and to grind to where you want to be in life or what you want to do in life. Because, you know, when you grow up, you have your parents or the schools just, like, saying, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Yeah. And, you know, sometimes you don't know, or, like, the first thing that pops up in your head, and like, those are, like, goals for some people. And then, like, once you get into junior high school and high school, or especially even college, where you think you do know where you want to go, then it's just, like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. But, you thought of what you wanted. You said nope because you knew already, and then you started doing little, I guess you could say blogs, because you did put it up on the internet, so it's like a blog. And then by the time you knew it, you just went you went full force. So congrats. Definitely congrats. Anything inspirational you want to like let anybody know, or let them know like how you feel, like what's your drive?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I mean, like I said, 2020 has been a really odd year for me. Like, it's really messed with my creativity, and I went to a period when I didn't want to. I still sometimes like question if I want to write anymore because it's just been such a crazy year. but writing does make me happy for the most part. So it's like I take it as like it's just a phase. And like I said, 2020 has been crazy for most people. It's just, you know, the year kind of started off weird for me, and then this COVID thing happened, and then it was just like, oh, okay, well, no, I can't do anything. The kind of where I would go to get my creative juices flowing, it's gone. So it's like I wound up getting like a PS4. I bought a PS4 just to like, okay, well, I gotta kill some time, so let me buy a PS4. And I did that and bought all these games. And then I was like, I can't even play for more than 2 hours. Like, the last time I played, I like played with a group of people online, and they were helping me out. And I was like, yo, appreciate it. But then it was 2 hours. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I cannot play more than 2 hours. And then I haven't been back on my PS4 in like 2 months. So, and people get like, why aren't you on? I was like, I don't know. Like, I played that last game, and then I don't know why I didn't have the urge to play. And I have like so many games, and I have not played any of them recently. I need to finish The Last of Us 1 so I can do 2. I'm slacking. I know, guys, I'm slacking. But I think anything. I just feel like, sometimes we do get to spots where we feel like stuck or something, and just like that's kind of why I started the YouTube, just to kind of get another outlet for creativity. So it wasn't so much on my writing, because I think me focusing like, oh, I'm not writing, made it worse for me. So I had to find another outlet to do something. So then I did the YouTube, and then gratefully, I do my wrestling live streaming show for Unpopular Review, which is on YouTube as well. You can look it up, or like on Facebook. But that helped a lot, just to like, we're talking about wrestling and you're joking around with your co-host, and then you got people making like sometimes very weird comments. But then you got people who make really nice comments, and you just make you like, oh, you guys actually watch us, like, really every week? You want to know what we're saying about wrestling? Like, and that's always like also very humbling. Like, you can watch any show, but you watch the show. You can, talk to anybody else, and you choose to like come back every week and watch us, even if we don't start on time, which is more my co-host more than me, because I like being on time. They don't. But like, even if it's that kind of stuff, it's just always like, oh wow, like I'm grateful for that. So those things kind of help me. So I just say, if you like whatever it is you're trying to do, and if you get stuck, just like find another outlet. It's okay to feel stuck. Don't beat yourself up, because I definitely did that. And whatever it is you're doing, I think don't put a age on it, or put like a time. I think a lot of people focus on, I should have done this by this age, and I'm like, no, you'll drive yourself crazy if you think you have to have something done by a specific age, because in that case, like my degree, I got years later than I should have gotten it. I would have it if I was like, oh, I didn't get it at 21, I didn't get it at 22, I waited till like 27 to get my bachelor's. And it's like, those things, don't worry about too much what social media tells you. Social media can be great because you can meet people and you get to like be creative and you get to put that out there, but sometimes social media can be a drag when you got people with these like really unrealistic expectations, and then you think, oh, I have to have my life like this too, and that's not realistic. Like, everybody has their own book, everybody has their own story, life path they have to follow. Do what works for you. So if at 40 you decide to do something and do a whole like, I'm quitting my job and do that, then do that. If you get that good job at 21 and it happens to work out for you, do that. Just don't set, unrealistic expectations. Just whatever works for you, let it flow, let it happen, and don't feel like sad because it's not the way you want it to go right away, or because your friends, you might think it's something more that you don't have. It doesn't necessarily mean you're never going to get it. It's just, it'll come, when the universe allows it. So I think that's like the biggest advice I can get, because it's something I had to work on myself too. It's just like, you have these expectations and then you get upset, like, oh, I didn't make this expectation. And then you'll be sad about it, and then you don't want to have like that negative energy because of things you think you're supposed to have. So just try to be like positive about stuff. If you get stuck, it's fine, and just go with whatever your life is telling you. It doesn't have to have like, you have to have a wife, kids, and a house and a car by 30, or like this 6-figure job, or whatever it is that you're looking for. You don't have to have that by certain ages. Whatever it is that works for you, works for you. So that's probably like the biggest thing I can tell a person. Sorry, that was really long-winded.
Yeah, don't put a limit towards things or time, just because you'll stress yourself, and like when you get there, you'll just be like, I'm still here. And it's just like, sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes something does happen in life. Definitely, like, whatever you do, follow your dreams, follow what your heart. If you don't know where it's gonna lead you, then maybe have a backup. But if you know where it might lead you, then keep going, keep pushing. Sometimes you never know. but definitely don't put an age. I knew a lady, and she was at least maybe 60s, 70s. And one day I saw her and she was dressed up super nice. And I was just like, oh. And she was like, and I'm like, what's going on? What's something big? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, what's happening? She's like, I'm graduating. And I'm like, graduating? She's like, yeah, I finished my master's. And I was just like, whoa. Like, and she's like, just always remember, it's never too late to go back to school or finish school or get any degree you want. Like, just if you feel you want to go back to school, go back to school. And that was really like powerful to me, because like I would have never thought like somebody like her would go back to school. But I definitely do agree with you. Hope for many success for you in your books, and hopefully by next year you'll release more books. And Barnes and Nobles, come on Barnes and Nobles, gotta get at least one of her books. We're not gonna ask for too much. Where can people find you and check out your podcast, or like find your books or anywhere?
Okay, so for my author stuff, everything's pretty much the same. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is at author K Blake. That's pretty simple. Bookish Brown Girls, the Instagram is at Bookish Brown Girls. It's spelled out the way it's pronounced. Twitter, it's at BOOKISHBWN, and then girls, because Twitter didn't allow me to put the full name. And then as far as like my wrestling stuff, it's at Katrina Cash at XVPW. That's both Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That's I try to keep everything the same, so it's just easier to find, because it's like mad confusing when there's like 20 million names. And as far as all my books, they're all on Amazon. Eventually, I do want to put them in other outlets, but Amazon has been the easiest to kind of work around as far as like wanting prints or setting up price changes if I want to do like a sale on a book or something, and like the cover specifics. It's a lot easier than some of the other platforms. This is why I haven't did it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like everything, and then my YouTube is called In Cat We Trust. There's no link completely yet, because you gotta get like a certain amount of subscribers, and I'm new. I'm a new YouTuber, so I do not have that number yet to make the permanent link. But if you search it, it's like a cartoon picture of me, like with the peace sign. So and it's pink, and I like pink, so it's very easy to find. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like links and stuff.
All those links will be down below. Don't worry, guys. We got you. And talking about pink, Martha loves pink. That's why her MDMC Entertainment is black and pink. That's her colors. But for New York, we rep our colors of orange, blue, silver, and white. So, you guys can find me at It's Official. That's my Instagram. MDMC Entertainment on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget, guys, to like, subscribe, and comment. And thanks for watching our show.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Bye, guys.